Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. From wherever you're joining, we welcome you today to another Google-hosted webinar given by Googlers for publishers. I'm having the pleasure today with my dear colleague Matteo, who is on top of me, to speak to you about automating your ad operations with the use of Google App Scripts. So this might be your first webinar or you're a veteran webinar viewer, but let's just go over some housekeeping, some quick rules so everything is smooth. Watch on demand. Of course, this session will be recorded. That's really useful in the case of this content. We will tell you a little bit more about it later, but it would be very good to share this with some of your developer in your ad operations teams, or even watch it live, share it to some colleagues. So feel free to check that out later. Ask any questions. We really are happy if you ask questions. We have some questions at the end. Let's keep that for the end. It's going to take around 45 to 50 minutes, and we'll keep like 10 minutes for any questions you have. At the end as well, we'll be sharing you a little feedback form to fill in. Here at Google, we believe that feedback is a gift. We really appreciate it. And if you want to have these slides, we encourage you to share the feedback form. So who is speaking today? It should be obvious by now, but it's me, myself, and Matteo. So both of us are publisher solutions consultants at GTech. He's working in Milan. I'm working in Amsterdam. You want to introduce yourself, Matteo?
Yeah, I do the same job as Lou. I'm just based in a different country, but we are basically the technical arm of Google. We support our sales team and we operate as technical account managers. So some of you may have already seen some of our faces. You're probably working with some of our colleagues located in other countries. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matteo. He'll be speaking shortly. So for the agenda today, we want to make sure that everyone here is on the right page of what we'll be covering. First of all, let's do some use cases inspiration. So to try and basically explain to you like what we'll be building, and then working backwards from there, we'll be showing the technologies we use to build those, how you can build it yourself. And yeah, so that's basically the why. We want to show you using different technologies, like for example, the Google Ad Manager API, Google App Scripts, and Google Workspace in general, how you can connect those to basically automate your ad operations in a way that's very vague. Operating your ad operations, there's a lot of different things you can do. I hope that by the end of this, you basically have a good idea of the things you can do, and working from there, come up with your own use cases. Who is this for? Of course, ad operations. We welcome you all. We love you. We work with you all on a daily basis. So this is why we came up with this webinar, to basically help you automate or make your job day-to-day a bit easier in some cases. JavaScript AdOps or developers, we know that some of you get your hands dirty with some JavaScript development, so that's really nice. Of course, for app scripts, you need to be able to develop a bit. So either you can do that yourself if you have the knowledge and the know-how, or you could allocate that to a developer, or you're maybe a developer and you want to come up with your own use cases, build them yourself. In any case, that's the scope of today. And what you can expect: inspiration and overview. Basically, first we inspire you, then we show you the overview of the technologies, go a bit deeper on how to actually build stuff. And yeah, by the end of this, I hope we'll have done a great job at covering all those. Matteo, you wanna take it off here?
Of course. Thank you so much, Lou. So we're going to do something a little bit unconventional here. We're going to start from the end. So I want to show you some use cases that some publishers in our pilot phase have actually built using this technology. And so you can get your appetite going. If you see what you like, if you like what you see, you'll probably start to pay a little bit more attention. And if you don't like what you see, well, at least you can jump off and, maybe you save an hour of your day. So we had one publisher in this instance that decided to switch from AdMob to Ad Manager. And by doing that, they also decided that they wanted to test refreshing their ad units with, different refresh rates. And so they set up an A/B test to do this. And unfortunately, they would have to change the refresh rate of all their ad units manually in GAM. And of course, when you have a lot of ad units, this can take a very long time to do. So they figured that maybe there would be an easier way to do this. And of course, the easier way to do this would be to use APIs to actually do that automatically. So you can, change with just one click of a button. You can change 100 ad units refresh timers in one go. So they built this little spreadsheet that you see at the bottom with 2 buttons where you can download a list of ad units, and then from the little drop-down menu, you can select the refresh timer that you like. You click update, and boom, by magic, all the ad units are updated. So this is just one of the ideas or fancy use cases that you can draw inspiration from. We got more coming up. So we also have another publisher that actually used a third-party service to set up header bidding line items. This third-party service created a whole bunch of creative level targetings associated with the header bidding line items. And this, of course, was a big problem because it made them hit the line item limit. And so they were no longer able to traffic any other campaigns in their ad server. They needed to change this by removing the creative level targeting from all the line items. And of course, we're talking about thousands of line items, if you're familiar with how header bidding is set up. Doing this by manually was hardly feasible. So what they decided to do is to reach out to us, and together we developed this little spreadsheet, again, that you can see at the bottom, where they even built a custom sidebar where they can input the network code and they can filter their ad units with, or the line item with a certain name. In this case, it's pre-bid. And again, with just one click of a button, they can remove all the creative level targeting. This took a little bit of customization versus the base script that we provided. But again, it's something that if you have a little bit of coding skills, a little bit of understanding of the APIs, you can get your hands dirty with, and you can have a lot of fun. I have another example for you, and then we'll get into more technical stuff. Another publisher we had, one of our clients reached out to us. They wanted to map their key values to publisher-provided signals, the IAB taxonomy. Now, we do have a function in Ad Manager built in that allows you to upload the key value IDs and map them to PPS signals. But unfortunately, we don't have a native built-in functionality to download a list of key value. So they figured that maybe they could do this easily via API, and that was indeed the case. And so they built a little piece of automation that would download a list of key values IDs and associate it with the PPS IDs for the mapping. So again, as you can see, these are all small-scale solutions, kind of self-contained, single-use tools that you can build very rapidly, deploy very rapidly, and they can probably save you a few hours in your day if you have to do these tasks repetitively. And just so you know, this is not just for publishers. Even us at GTIC, we use this to develop some of the solutions that some of you may actually have leveraged in the past. Some of our fellow Googlers built a automated creative reminder. So it's basically a spreadsheet that will send out emails whenever a campaign is about to start and it still doesn't have creative associated with it. We also have a tool to build automated decks in slides. So basically you can connect spreadsheets to slides and have them fill in or update automatically by clicking a button based on the data that you have input in the spreadsheet. And lastly, we also have a little automation that allows you to modify certain parameters in your line items still using APIs. As you can see, the applications are the most diverse that you can think of. Sky's the limit. The more you build, the better you get at this, and the more ideas can come up. And if you have ideas that you want to share with us, we're more than happy to hear them. So moving on, I'll just comment very briefly on Google Apps Script. Most of you are probably already familiar with Google Apps Script. That is our rapid application development platform. So essentially, it's a host of tools that you can use to develop and deploy applications. We have this little image on the right that shows essentially what's possible, right? You can have a form that collects data, puts that data into an Excel spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet is sent over using Gmail. All of this is possible by using the automations that are sort of granted by AppScript. Moving on, 3 reasons why we use AppScript. Well, number one, because it's very easy. So some of you may be limited by your corporate policies and they're not allowed to install third-party software. Maybe you're not even allowed to run command line scripts. So the beauty of AppScript is that it runs in your browser. It's a very powerful tool. So it contains pretty much a complete suite of tools that you need to develop code. So you have a scheduler, you can run troubleshooting. There's a code editor, of course. It's written in simple JavaScript. It has a built-in collaboration feature, so it's very easy to share your scripts with other people and collaborate them. And everything runs on our servers. So everything is basically hosted on the front end. You can use Spreadsheet, and on the back end, it runs in the cloud. So you don't need to host anything anywhere. You can even use BigQuery as a database to support your tools. So again, endless possibilities. It's just a function of how much time you have to invest into this and how how familiar you are with the technologies. And then again, it's seamless because just like I mentioned, it's pretty much integrated with all of the Google products. So you're going to have Gmail, Drive, Calendar. There's the whole Google Cloud suite, so Sheets, Slides, Forms. We have pretty much built-in libraries for all of these. So it becomes very easy to connect these products and build like scaled solutions. Let me just give you like a few examples of what is particularly easy in Google Apps Script, which is also the reason why we use it, right? Accessing the manifest is one of them. So before you can use APIs, as you probably all know, you have to grant access to some of the services or some of the tools that you want to use. And normally, if you're going to have to write code to do this, it's going to be a little bit complicated. It involves creating client secrets and sharing refresh tokens and whatnot. So with Spreadsheet and with AppScript in general, it's very, very simple. You can just click on extensions, AppScript, and then there's a little gear icon that says project setting. And through that, you can basically unhide the manifest. The manifest looks like something like this, but you don't have to worry about the whole thing. I know it looks a little bit unfamiliar, but this is the only part that you care about. It is literally like just a list of URLs, and each URL represents a service that you can connect to using AppScript. The full list is available at the link at the bottom, but as you can see here, there's anything from DFP, which for those of you that don't know is the legacy name of Ad Manager. There's Spreadsheet, there's external request, which is basically third-party APIs. You can connect to analytics, to the cloud platform, even like Google Translate. There's a whole host of things that you can connect to, and it's as easy as just adding one line to this list. And once you do it with just the one click of a button, you will get the familiar prompt that requests you to grant access to these services. And you will see the services that you requested access for listed in the prompt on the right. Maybe if you're not the owner of the application, so if it was developed by someone else, you'll get maybe a little warning sign, but do not worry about that. Again, authentication, super easy. Scheduling is even easier. So again, you can go into extension, AppScript, and then there's triggers. And you can set up like a time-driven trigger that essentially runs your script maybe every Monday, every week. So it's very easy to also run automated reporting, or if you have stuff that needs to be updated like frequently, you can do it by this, and you don't even have to like open the spreadsheet. It will do it automatically in the background. There's not just time-based triggers, but there's also on form submit, on open, and on edit. These are all triggers that can be triggered by other stuff. So you can change the content of a slide every time you open the deck, or you can run some automation or some custom functions every time someone inputs new data in a spreadsheet. You can do stuff like send emails whenever you submit a form. For instance, imagine creating a little automation or a little tool for your sales team where they can put in some data in a form, and it runs the forecasting API to let your sales team know if there's actually enough space available to book a campaign. And it sends back an email or whatever, giving them the answer. So all of this can be built using APIs and using AppScript as a base. These are just like some of the advantages. Again, another very, very cool feature is named ranges. These are available in spreadsheets. And basically the way it works, it allows you to give a name to certain cells on your spreadsheets. And this makes it very, very easy to connect the front end, so spreadsheet, to the back end, which is AppScript. As you can see in the bottom left corner, we're able to define variables or constants that are actually connected to what is shown on the spreadsheet under that name or the cell that has that specific name. So hopefully this gives you just enough information to sort of get your appetites going and understand what's possible. And now me and Lou will go through the slides and hopefully show you how this is built. And we very much hope that by the end of this, you'll have, at least the beginning of a capability to start developing this. So moving on next, Ad Manager APIs. We're going to use these, of course, because this whole webinar is centered about Ad Manager APIs. There's a link here to the start page, basically, of the Ad Manager APIs, where you can navigate them and you can get more familiar with what they do, what is available, and whatnot. I will just walk you right now through the very basic structure of Ad Manager APIs. So this is what you have to understand. We basically have APIs are structured in versions. Every version comes with a bunch of services. Services have operations that you can perform against them. And then every operation normally requires one or few parameters. In this instance, suppose that we want to retrieve a list of line items that are currently delivering in our Ad Manager network. What we do is we select the latest version. This is the August 2024 version. We select the line item service, which is what we use to access line items. And we'll go into more details about this in a minute. The operation that we need is get line items by statement. As you can see, all of these are pretty like self-explanatory, like the name should suggest what they do. And then you need a filter statement. So we're gonna use a very basic PQL query that says where status equals delivering. And this is how you get a list of delivering line items using the APIs. This is what the reference page for the APIs look like. So it's I know it's awfully small, but on the left side you have the version number at the very top, and then the list of services that you can use for that version. If you click on any of them, it will take you to the second item on the page, which is like the detailed view for that service. It gives you a brief description of what the service does, and at the bottom you'll see also the operations that you can perform with that service. Again, you click on any of the operations, it will open a little page that shows you what properties that operations can be used with, can be queried. And then if you click on individual property, it will also give you the list of values that that parameter or that property can take. So again, you're gonna have to play around with this a little bit and explore the API reference and get familiar with the services in the operation. But I promise you, the more you use it, the more easy it gets. They're all pretty much structured in the same way, so it will be a breeze once you get the sort of general gist of it. So I'm going to go through a very, very, very simple exercise. So we're going to explore together the API reference page, so you can also get a better understanding for how to do this yourself. And hopefully after seeing a couple of examples, you know how to go about it. So suppose we want to get, this is the first exercise we want to do, we want to get a list of users in our GAM network that are actually admins, so they're administrators. I'm going to start from the API version. I'm getting the latest version that's available. That's v2024-08. And then because I need to get users, what I can do, this is a little filter thingy that you will get in the reference page. You can start typing users into the search bar, and it will show a list of services that do stuff with users. There's one in particular, you can see it maybe highlighted at the bottom in red. It says user service. That's most likely the one we want. So if you click on it, it will take you to the user service page, and it will actually show you that, yes, this is the service that you use in order to retrieve or manipulate user objects. And at the bottom, you also see the operations that are available, like, for instance, get users by statement, which is the one highlighted in red. That sounds about right. That's probably the thing that we want to do. We want to get a list of users. When you click on the get users by statement, it shows you that it needs a filter statement as parameter. And the filter statement can contain any of the PQL properties that are listed above. Specifically, role name is potentially the one that we want to look at because we want to get a list of administrators, right? So you can write your query or your parameter something like this, where role name equals administrator. And as a result, you will get a user object in return, and the user object contains all this information. Now, I understand that here I cheated a little bit because I already knew that administrators were called administrators in the system. But what if you don't know that? Well, you can go back to the user service. And as you can see under the user service, you also get another operation that is called get all roles. So by using the get all roles operation, you will also see that it requires no parameter. So we can just run it as it is. And it will return a list of role objects. And the roles contain the name and the role name and whatnot. And so by looking at this, you can find the actual role name that you're looking at, and then you can use that to filter the get user by statement operation that we've done previously. So again, this is how you need to get smart and start navigating the API reference until you find the services and the operations and all the parameters that you need. And once you have them, it gets a lot easier to build your application. But this is sort of the background work that you need to do. I'll go very quickly through another example. What if we want to create a new pair of key values? So again, I can filter in the reference page. There's a little filter dropdown, and you can start looking for targeting, because generally speaking, custom targeting is what we're looking at. And you will see there's a thing called custom targeting service, again highlighted in red. Probably that's the one we want to use. So we're going to click on it. And we're going to see what the operations that we have potentially are. And as you can see here, you have a few options. You have create custom targeting keys, and then you have create custom targeting values. That sounds about right. That's pretty much what we're trying to do. So we're going to start with create custom targeting keys. If you click on the operation, it will show you that the custom targeting keys operation needs as a parameter a keys object. And the keys object specifically requires a name and a type, which you can see again highlighted in red. So in order to call this API service and this API operation, we're going to need to pass as a parameter this little XML object. Now, mind you, we're working with SOAP APIs, so we need to build this XML object like this. There's a keys tag that contains two tags, one named name and the other one called type. And again, name can be anything you want. Type, as you can see in the little cutout at the top right, it needs to be either predefined or free form. So again, you get this by looking at the API. It will tell you what the parameters are supposed to look like. So very easily, by just doing this, we can create a new key. The system will return a key ID. Now that we have the key ID, we need to create the values. So in order to do the values, we again go back to the custom targeting service. As you can see, there's a create custom targeting keys, create custom targeting values operation. We're going to use that one. Kind of like the create custom targeting keys, this one requires an object of type values. And the object has, again, two parameters, custom targeting key ID, which we got previously, and then a name. So what do we do? Again, we create a little XML thingy. Oh, the formatting got off, but it's basically just a little XML tag that says, okay, values. And then for values, you have to define custom targeting key ID and then a name. You see how this starts to become a little bit funny now, maybe, because when you work with some of these objects, they can be a little bit complex. XML is probably not the most friendly type of object. So what you could do instead, we have a little trick up our sleeves. We also built a custom library to do that. And Lou will now talk just about that. So it will take you through another way of doing things that's hopefully easier than this. Lou, over to you.
Thank you so much, Matteo. Just in time for me to finish my coffee. Just before we get going, just a small reminder to submit your questions. We'll cover those in a bit after these two sections. So thank you so much, Matteo, for showing us the Google Ad Manager API, what you can do with AppScript. In our day-to-day, we get a lot of questions about the Google Ad Manager API. I find it very important to be able to find things in the Google Ad Manager API reference. So going to the Google API Manager reference, like you showed, looking up for services, looking up operations. There's a ton you can do with the Google Ad Manager API. And the only way you will know how is by exploring it. So go ahead and explore it. And about AppScript, it's a very powerful technology. You can automate everything in your Google Workspace, or at least almost everything in your Google Workspace. But how do we combine those two, right? So how do you actually call the Google Ad Manager API from your AppScript scripts? You've alluded to this. There is one way using XML and SOAP. But how would it actually look like, right? So calling the Google Ad Manager API from AppScript. Let's try to use a client library, right? So moving to our Ad Manager API reference, we can see there's some client libraries. We have Java, we have .NET, PHP, Python, and Ruby. Some of you are very familiar with some of those, but what we don't see in here is an AppScript library. We don't see a JavaScript library as well. So how can you actually do that? How can you actually call the Google Ad Manager API from AppScript if there's no client library for it? One way to do it is actually making a SOAP request. So currently, our Google Ad Manager API is accepting web requests via not REST, but SOAP. And then you write the SOAP request in the XML format. And by following the reference, you'll be able to find exactly what you need to write. But this kind of comes with a problem, right? Because if you look at the sample response for SOAP, I'll spare you the details here, but it can be very long. It can be, you need to parse it as well. You need to find the right objects. You need to find how everything works. So the question is then, it works, but is there a more developer-friendly way to do this without having to write like a lot of boilerplate code, have to parse XML structures, and making the SOAP request, finding a way to do that in AppScript because we don't really have a documented way to do it except the Google Ad Manager API and trying to find your way through it. So there is one way to do it. So recently we came up with a new project called the GAM, so Google Ad Manager App Scripts Library. It's open source on GitHub, so you'll be able to navigate through it right now. The link is there. It will be in a few more of the slides. So it's under Google Marketing Solutions, GAM App Scripts. Feel free to go use it. Feel free to share it to your developers. One of our colleagues, who is a customer solution engineer in GTech, made sure that you basically don't have to do all the boilerplates and build this little unofficially supported Google Ad Manager library for AppScript. So there's two ways to use this. Again, this is from the GitHub page. Feel free to read it on it yourself. One way you can basically deploy it yourself as you would with any web app. And then it is going to use Class, which is one of our local tools to basically push local code that you have on your computer to AppScript in the cloud, basically, which is our way of interacting from local to our Google Cloud AppScript environment. It's recommended because you will basically own the code on your local PC and then you will own the AppScript code in the cloud, but it takes some time to set up. You want to use this if you're going to start with like a real project that you want to deploy. But if you're just going to prototype and just want to get something off the rails really quickly, we have a way to do that as well. Just import this library string in AppScript. We'll show you how to do that later. Again, this is not recommended because the cloud is just someone else's PC. And in this case, it's just running on someone else's PC. Even though it's fast to use, it might be deprecated in the future. And if you own the code yourself, you deploy it yourself, the deprecation risks are not there. So this library covers a lot of boilerplates. So this is just some code on the left and the right from the Google Ad Manager library for AppScript on GitHub. And he has done a great job making sure that you don't have to write any boilerplate when you actually want to get started with these great technologies. And it provides you with a very to use like API. So basically you just import it, you have some settings, you make the service that you need, and then you can get started right away. It has all the data parsing you need. So just follow the Google Ad Manager API reference and check out the README on the GitHub, and you'll be able to get started quite quickly. Big disclaimer here, guys. The GAM AppScripts API is not an officially supported Google library. Even we open source it, so feel free to use it at your own risk. Great. Cool. I hope everyone is excited. So I think now we covered basically all the basics. So we've covered AppScript, we've covered the Google Ad Manager API. We've covered the Google Ad Manager API in AppScript. Well, that's a lot of APIs. And let's start building basically. So the first thing we'll do to build out the use case, obviously we want to come up with a use case. It has to be something related to AdOps. It has to be something related to automation. Maybe let's use one of the use cases we use in the beginning, one of the 4 use cases. Then we do some due diligence, which basically consists of going to the Google Ad Manager API reference, making sure that all the operations are there, going through the AppScript reference, making sure that AppScript has all the features we need. Then we actually go to development if the due diligence has been correctly done. And when the development is done, we can deploy everything. So the use case, like I said, we'll be using one of the use cases we covered in the beginning. If you've paid attention, one of the use cases was mass editing refresh rates of filtered ad units. Basically, we filter an ad unit. For example, let's say we filter ad units by name. Let's say you want your app ad units and they're all called, they all have the app in the name. So we can filter by name like app or name equals app or whatever filtering you want to use. Check the API reference for more information on that. And then the refresh rate, which is going to be a dynamic value, basically meaning that anyone can change it. So you can just put it in the sheet like a little number, 60, 45, 30, depending on what you want to use. And then we'll have like a button somewhere to click update. So anyone can just change the filtering, change the refresh rate, click the button and make changes to their Google Ad Manager account. Right, so due diligence. Let's check the Google Ad Manager API structure. So going over to Google, checking the reference. Again, like Matteo showed earlier, we want to use a little search functionality to look for ad units. It's in the inventory service. So the inventory service has a get ad units by statement. So what is a statement? A statement is basically our way to declare like a query. a filter. So statements can be a where, can be a limit, can be an offset. It can have multiple things. We'll show you that later. So you want to get the ad units by some statements, so that can be some filtering and stuff. And the important thing is that here is that you get back a ad unit page, and the ad unit page just has a list of ad units. Great. As you can see here, we have another function called update ad units. So that's actually, we read the ad unit first, then we want to write the ad units. Update ad units just take a bunch of ad units. So the ad units from the previous call. So first you get them, then you update them locally, for example, changing the refresh rate, and then you push them back to the servers, and that will update them. So for the development, so stick with me here for the high level overview. We want to build this in Google Sheets. You can build this in Slides, which is probably not a good contender. Forms, maybe. Google Docs. Let's just build it in Slides. And then we will attach an app script to this slides. We'll be using the library, which we'll call the Google Ad Manager API internally. Great. First thing we need to do is, like I said, we have two dynamic values, which is the ad unit filter and the refresh rate. So if you know a bit about Sheets, I'm not going to cover that now, but there's basically some named ranges that you can set up. So those are basically fixed columns, rows and columns, or just one cell. And then later in AppScript, as you see at the bottom, you can get that named range and just get the value of it. So in this case, for example, we have the ad unit filter again on B, and then on C, there's the actual value. So add unit filter and refresh rate. Let's keep that in mind for later. So now we set up the named ranges. The next thing we want to do is actually create and attach app script. So we've talked a lot about app script, but this is actually how you get started with it. If you check Google Sheets, Google Docs, you basically find extensions. When you click on that, you have the little app script button. As soon as you click that, it's going to create in the backend an app script project, and it's going to link it to this Google Sheet. All right. So once that happens, you basically have a new pop-up. In there, we can add, there's some code at the left. There's a libraries tab. Click the plus button, and we're going to use the library ID we got from the Google App Script GitHub. Once we do that, it's going to look it up locally. It's going to come up with an identifier, and now we can start using it in our app scripts. Okay, so this is a lot of code. Don't use this code. Disclaimer here. It's just to show exactly how it works. So at line 1, basically, like, we import the library. We set up everything we need from the library. Line 3, 4, and 5 is basically an on-open, meaning this function will execute when the sheet opens. And when the sheet opens, we want to get the current sheet, create a menu button called update ad units. And when it's that clicked, it's going to call the function below, which is on line 7, update ad units. Great. So the green lines are basically what's going out to the API, and the red lines are basically some native app scripts functionality. So 8 and 9 is basically creating the Google Ad Manager client. First, you get the auth token. You call this function, and then when you click on the button, it's going to show like a Google OAuth pop-up with all the required OAuth scopes, which Matteo showed in the beginning. Then the app name, this is basically a unique identifier on the backend for your app name. So we can identify it. This can be anything. Make sure it's quite verbose. Then your network ID, very important here. Then the versioning. Afterwards, we make the inventory service. So just getting the client.getService inventory service. Again, that's the service we used earlier. You can have multiple services in one script. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you're using the correct ones, right? Then we make a filter, or at least we get the filter from the named range on line 10. We build the statement, so that's the statement I showed you earlier. So the statement builder has a where, limits, and then to statement, which converts it to the correct statement that needs to be used on line 16. So on line 16, we're actually doing the first ad manager call, which is to get the ad units by statement. That returns an ad unit page, and then we get the ad units, and then we get the refresh rate on line 18, 19, 20, 21. We update the refresh rate to the value in the named range. And finally, on line 22, we actually perform the operation to update the ad units. Great. And now if we go back to the sheets, there will be like a little menu like a button here, app script. When you click that, it's going to drop down. And when you click update the ad units, it's going to use a named ranges value to update your ad units. All right, so for deployments, of course, this depends really on the use case you want to do on the on the workspace app that you've used. Because we're using Google Sheet here, it's just going to be this one slide sharing to users. So you are going to use the standard functionality that you have in Google Workspace to share your scripts. Sometimes the script might be run, for example, on a time-based event, which means you don't actually need to share it to someone. But because of this use case, we want people to use the script to update their ad units, so we can share it with any other colleagues, ad operation colleagues, developers, to basically use the script and use this little kind of like a web app we built here, right? All right, and that's it. Those few slides is how easy it is to build something in AppScript. A lot of things are covered internally, and thanks to the like library that we've built, it's quite easy to get started. So here's the next steps for you guys. Come up with your own use cases. Think where AppScript and these technologies can save you in your day-to-day. Explore the resources being the AppScript, GAM AppScript library, and Google Ad Manager API, and of course this deck. Talk to your GTech and account management team. As always, talk to us, and we'll help you come up with use cases. We'll help you build stuff, and we're very excited to see what you can build. Great. So thanks so much for listening in. Sign up to receive invitations in this webinar.